If you want to see everything I've got lined up for my first graders science this year, stay tuned. Hi everybody, welcome back to Project Happy Home. If you're new here, I'm Tanya, doctor lawyer turned homeschooling mom of 3 kids, almost ages 9, 6, and 4 this year. If you're interested in videos about homeschooling, parenting a 2E child who is gifted and has ADHD, and also just mommyhood in general with a dash of minimalism thrown in, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Today I'll be talking about what my plans are for first grade science for my middle child, my daughter, who is super sweet and very into school and super into nature studies and science. Now, if you've watched my videos for a while, you know that last year we partnered with Nancy Larson Science to do their level 1 science. Unfortunately, we moved very early on in the school year, and that Nancy Larson box of science stuff sort of went into storage mistakenly, and then we had interim housing for about a month and a half, so that stayed in storage, and then by the time it came out of storage to our new house in a different state, it was just far into the school year and we had other things going on, and honestly, a formal science curriculum at home was not my priority. I enrolled the kids all into a nature hiking class every week, and that was the bulk of our science for last spring. So what I decided sometime around the spring was that I would simply put Nancy Larson Science aside for this year, for my middle child who is a rising senior kindergartner first grader. And in all frankness, last year when we started using it, my eldest was a second grader and my middle child was a solid pre-K kindergartner. I thought it was a little bit advanced for her and a little bit too elementary for my son who was in second grade. So I honestly find that level 1 would be perfect for a kindergartner first grader, but probably a little bit elementary for a second grader, at least a second grader like mine, who is really well versed in scientific topics and reads a lot of science nonfiction on his own. So it actually ended up working out really well for us. That is all to say that we will be using Nancy Larson Level 1 for my first grader this year, in addition to some random other science things that we do. So one thing that we're doing this school year that I'm super excited about is I've enrolled both my older children, a third grader and a quasi first grader, in an official forest school. So 1 day a week for the whole fall semester, they will be spending a 5-hour block of time in a forest school. Now, the forest school is actually run by a retired college professor who was a naturalist in his own right. They get to spend a lot of time on 20 acres of land studying Paleolithic rock formations and creek life and how to garden and the native plant life in North Carolina and a lot of other things that I honestly am not that well versed in. My scientific background is solidly in medicine and pathology, anatomy and physiology, and rocks and geology and creepy crawlies are not my thing. So I'm super excited for them to have this opportunity. Apart from forest school, however, my first grader will be using Nancy Larson Level 1 as her spine. Now, I've done several videos in the past about Nancy Larson and what the materials contain. I've done an unboxing video as well as a video going through some of the online materials that are available, and I will link those up above, so be sure to check those out. And if I remember, I'll link them in the description box down below as well. They really walk you through every single element in much more detail than I'm going to do here. One of my favorite things about the Nancy Larson curriculum is it really does provide you with every single thing you need for science for that year. If you don't have time to run to the store for materials, there's nothing to worry about. If you don't have time to figure out exactly how to plan out your unit studies, no worries. If you want to have an open and go science curriculum, I don't think you could find a better one than Nancy Larson's curriculum. When you get the curriculum, one of the first things you'll see is this book, which is the Homeschool Teacher's Manual. Now, it's quite thick, and this is just level 1 here. It's spiral bound, it's very sturdy. An excellent feature about this curriculum is that it is open and go and completely scripted out for you. So if you don't come from a science background or you don't feel comfortable teaching science to your kids, this has you covered. For example, if you look at lesson 1 right here, you have this box up at the top, and that's the lesson preparation section. So the lesson preparation section for describing what scientists do goes through and it tells you exactly what you need to get from your materials. So you need photo cards 1A, 1B, and 1C, and a science word list. Then you have the resource book, What Do Scientists Do? And that's all provided for you in the kit. And it has what you do to plan ahead for this lesson. So you need to collect some magazines, store advertisements, and catalogs that show people in different life stages, so children, adults, toddlers, etc. And then before the lesson, you print one copy of the science word list from the website or make one copy of the master. And the master copy is actually in this book itself, so there's no real searching to do. The lesson is scripted out for you completely. So the first bullet point says, show your child the cover of the book, what do scientists do? And then everything in bold is what you read out to your child. So it'll say here, the title of the book is What Do Scientists Do? What do you think this book will be about? What do you think a scientist does? Let's find out. Then the next bullet point says, read what scientists do to your child. And then you have scripted questions to ask. What are some things scientists do? This year you will be a scientist. And then it instructs you how to walk through the photo cards, etc. So I love that it's a scripted program, especially for the days when I'm just feeling harried and I have a lot of other things going on. I don't have to come up with the whole plan on my own. This is the materials list that came with my box of Nancy Larson supplies. So in it you have about 6 different books: Trees to Paper, Insects and Spiders, Peterson's First Guides, Trees, The Seasons of Arnold's Apple Tree, What Do Scientists Do, and the book Your Insides. It also sends a butterfly garden set with a larva coupon, so when you're ready to do that section, you send in the coupon and they send you the larva. A human x-ray set, insect learning cards, insects and spiders, like a bag of plastic ones, Jack pine cones, because some of us live in places where you can't find a pine cone. I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of Pinterest activities that involve pine cones. When I used to live in Florida, I was like, where am I going to get these pine cones? Ladybug Land with a larva coupon as well, a magnifier, and tree cookies, so little cutouts of tree rounds so they can inspect the tree rings. So that's everything you get in this kit. And you have many different organizational printouts provided for you by Nancy Larson. This is something I appreciate too, because as a strange sort of eclectic reverse planner, it helps me to have this stuff printed out so I can kind of gauge our progress, but I don't have to do all the forward thinking planning myself. So it really helps save you a lot of time. And each lesson here lists out exactly what types of materials you need, from everything from the science word list to colored papers or the notebooks that you might need, or paper. It makes it really simple to be prepared for the weeks that are coming. Another printable that they offer for you, for those of you who like scope and sequence and really knowing what your child is going to learn in every lesson, is a student outcomes printable. And this comes in sort of a table form. So here you have the lesson number, the topic of the lesson, and then here it'll say exactly what they learned. So here, for example, observing and comparing leaves for lesson 16 says students will share, discuss, and compare their leaves' size, shape, and kind. So especially if you're teaching multiple kids at the same level, this makes it really easy for you to see what they'll be doing. Nancy Larson also provides literature connections for you. So if you want to have library books that coincide with your lesson for the week, that's really simple. They've laid it all out for you. So there's about 3 to 4 different books for every single lesson. For example, you have for lesson 1, Scientists Ask Questions, and also What is a Scientist? They provide the name of the book, the name of the author, the ages that it's appropriate for, as well as the ISBN number. So it makes it incredibly easy for you. If you like colored charts, they have done an awesome integrated curriculum model for you here. So for every topic, they have a art activity, a buddy reading activity, a library activity, a vocab activity, making words activity, writing activity, and computer activity for you. So for example, under topic A, which is describing the life stages of human beings, if you wanted to do an art activity, it says here, allow children to use colored pencils to color in the drawings in their copy of booklet A. If you wanted to do a computer activity, allow children to view optional photos, additional photos from the Nancy Larson website. Use magnetic letters to make the spelling words that are provided. All of these lessons really incorporate various different learning modalities for your kids. So you have the kinesthetic learner there, you have the auditory learner for listening to stories, you have a lot of tactile objects in the curriculum. So I really do think it would work for a lot of different types of learners. They provide a glossary for you if you want your kids to practice dictionary skills and just looking up things in alphabetical order. And they have words and definitions for you. So if you're ever confused about the student word cards or anything, it's all listed out. The actual word cards look like this. So they print out as word cards, and then the student can match them to their definition, which generally is accompanied by a picture as well. The word lists that they reference look like this, where the students can hand write in the words of the week, the key words from the lesson. My daughter has decorated the front of her binder, so I won't show you, but each of these lessons comes with an accompanying packet for your child. Here you have Exploring Sunlight, Water, and Soil. Now, if you can see, it flips as an entire packet. Those are bound as packets. It arrives already hole punched, so there's nothing much for you to do there. And you can see about how much work they have to do in any one of these packets. And again, if you want to see these in more detail, I've done a different video where I really do go through in more detail what it is. Right now, though, I'm just going to read to you the different booklet names. You have Describing the Life Stages of Human Beings, Observing Trees, Botany, Exploring Sunlight, Water, and Soil, Investigating Animals and Their Habitats for Zoology. I'll just point out one feature I love here. Instead of putting down their name, where they have that section, they'll say the actual profession. So here it says zoologist, and that's where your kid writes down their name. And I just think that's a really nice way of getting your kid invested in this idea of growing up to be a scientist and being a scientist right now. I mean, when they're studying animals, they're being a zoologist. The next section is Discovering What's Inside Our Bodies. Then you have Examining the Characteristics and Life Cycles of Insects. The next section of the binder is Student Materials, where you have different worksheets like this. These are more like worksheet pages, but as you can see, each page is not very extensive. So it's really minimal writing. It's really appropriate for that kindergarten, first grade level. And obviously, if you have a younger child or someone who's not as comfortable with writing, they could dictate their responses to you. You could write them down for them. You could just talk through it and make it an oral lesson for this year. There's so many different options with what you decide to do. These are the insect cards that they mentioned, and these are really large, beautiful cards. If you can see, there's a slight perforation in the middle where you can cut them out, but they're beautiful to illustrate what you're talking about, and you can actually display them for the week. We have a little display board that we display our Bird of the Week card and some of our paintings of the week from Osborne Art Illustrations. So this will be a really nice addition to that sort of memory work. Every day for the week we talk about this particular card type of activity. This is the package of photo cards that they send with you, and just to show you, these are printed on really high quality cardstock and include pictures of all the different things that they're talking about. So for example, here you have different types of cacti. There are both full-size cards like that as well as half-size cards like this. So here you have a card with turtles. I like that they use a really clear font. All the pictures are labeled, as you can see in the bottom, so it's really easy to find when you have a specific lesson. You don't have to search through all the cards. They're in order and they're numbered, so it's easy to find for your lesson. These are the books that come with Level 1's curricula. You have The Seasons of Arnold's Apple Tree, Your Insides. This is one of those really cute books with those clear covers that overlay over another picture, so you can see like what it looks like with those features and without. An Audubon Society book on insects. These are really great, by the way. I've actually picked some of them up from thrift stores. Each page highlights a different type of insect and then has a little fact page about it. I love that they're small enough that you can slip into your backpack if you are going on a nature walk. What Do Scientists Do? Trees to Paper, and the Peterson's First Guide to Trees. And this is really a lovely little book too, as you go on nature walks, etc. It makes it really easy to identify what kind of leaves go with what kind of trees. This is my daughter's favorite thing so far. She can't wait to use it. It is the habitat for your ladybugs. It's shaped like a little mountain. Isn't that adorable? And then of course you have the habitat for the butterflies that just opens up like a big old net. So let me see if I can show you a picture of what that looks like. I guess not. But I hope you've seen these before. It just sort of pops up like one of those waste baskets, and it has a zippered closure for your butterflies. And then these are the human x-rays, and it comes with 18 different types of x-rays. And we have a little light table that I bought off of eBay, but it makes it really fun to just turn them on and actually be a physician. If you don't have a light table, putting them up on a clear, well-lit window will work just as well. Last but not least, you have these little plastic insects, and there's a whole different variety of them. If you watch the unboxing video, you can see all of them. And last but not least, you have this little tree round here where you can really investigate what tree rings are, and a couple of pine cones, and a magnifying glass with 2 different levels of magnification. So I hope you can tell that the Nancy Larson Level 1 curriculum really does provide a very well-rounded, comprehensive approach to science for a rising kindergartner or a first grader. I do a couple of other things in science that I think you might find interesting or useful. One of which is that we keep science notebooks for everybody for the year. And these continue. So even if you don't finish it for the year, you just sort of continue it into the next year and then we create another one. So my daughter's looks like this. I basically take a stack of colored cardstock, like lightweight cardstock, not super heavy, and I take it to Staples and have them spiral bind it with a clear cover and a back. The reason I use cardstock instead of, for example, a composition notebook or something or a sketchbook is I just find that it's a little bit sturdier. So if we ever do those charts where we like put a brad through and it spins or something, the cardstock holds it really well. If we paste in pressed flowers, etc., the cardstock seems to preserve everything a little better. So for science notebooks, at this age especially, I like cardstock. We do pretty simple things for the beginning. So last year she did things like illustrating a bird and writing bird, doing cutouts of rainbows. We did a nature bracelet, so we went around walking with a piece of sticky packaging tape on their hand like a bracelet, and they would pick up different things and stick it to them. Some illustrations of reptiles. We started doing the science word list from the Nancy Larson book and put it in there. There's some interactive activities that we did from the Carson DeLosa science book for first grade. So here you have what types of things you taste. It's the different senses. And that's about where we stop. So we'll be adding to this book a lot this year. There's a set of books that I actually got from another Homeschool Mom's book sale this year, and if you watch that haul, you already know what I'm going to say, but they're these books. They're the North Carolina Forest books. One is for fall and winter, and one is for spring and summer. And I'm super excited to use these because I never grew up here. I don't know that much about North Carolina flora and fauna. So these are not secular books. They are published by Rod and Staff Publishing. They definitely have mentions of God and Christianity, but I will just gloss over whatever does not lie in accordance with our family values. I still think there's a lot of merit to these books. They're really quite lovely with these tiny little illustrations in the margins of everything that they're talking about. So for here, for example, they have this beautiful illustration of the leaves of the black walnut tree. And I just really like the idea of being able to explore our own environment. Our house backs up to woods, and my kids often ask me what this tree is or what this plant is, and I'm like, maybe something. I don't know. So trees are not my forte, and honestly flora and fauna are not either. Luckily their dad is much more of a naturalist than me. He's a falconer, so he can help them out a lot, but while I'm around, these books are going to be my saving grace. The books actually come with these workbooks as well. They're very slender workbooks. I don't expect that I'll be using these for writing in, but they might be good for just discussion questions. For example, what is the only bird thought to be more talented than the mockingbird? How many bird songs and bird calls did one mockingbird imitate? Name 4 other things a mockingbird can imitate. What does the mockingbird use to make a nest? So really good for just, reflection questions, science discussion. Another book we'll be exploring this year is Look, I'm a Scientist by DK. And it just has cute little experiments. So you have like experiments that are perfectly suited to a kindergartner, first grader. You have the wooden spoon tapping different levels of liquid experiment. You have printing with Play-Doh, so you can use different types of nature objects or natural objects to create different patterns in Play-Doh. Here you have that classic Pinterest experiment of dipping a Q-tip into paint floating on milk with a little drop of food coloring to see what happens. Here you have making a potion, so sort of different densities of things that can float, vinegar, dishwashing liquid, water, making giant big bubbles, lots of fun little weekend experiments that are science. They don't necessarily have to be curriculum. The more I homeschool, the more I realize that you don't need to assign everything a day and a month and a week and a scope and a sequence. All of it counts. All of it works. We do reverse planning, basically meaning that I record what we do in any given day. I record it under very atypical categories of explore, create, play. These are all learning. These are all ways for us to play with our children, to grow with our children, to learn alongside them, and to build our enthusiasm. I found that in my first year, as I did very type A planning, not being able to check off everything I had planned really created this tension in me, and writing down what we do every day instead made my joy blossom forth much more. So if you are having tension associated with crossing things off in a time schedule, I really suggest to you that you explore the option of reverse planning. Give it a week and write down everything you do actually end up doing. You would be surprised to find out how much it is. For example, with my preschooler, when she helps me unload the dishwasher, I write that down. That's a huge life skill for a preschooler. You know, she's learning how to balance things, she's learning how to dry things, she's learning how to organize things, where they go, where they get put back. That's school for her, you know. For my third grader, if he's running around outside and like he comes back and shows me this new fairy circle of mushrooms that we've seen, we look up what makes a fairy circle of mushrooms, you know, like what is the legend behind a fairy circle and what is actually going on. You know, there's a mycelium underneath the ground, just one reaching out its spores in that circular shape. That was something I didn't know until he showed me the circle, and then I had to look it up. So if you write that type of stuff down, you will capture that magic of science and homeschooling without actually having to work at it. So that's just my little plug for reverse planning. Another book that we'll be using is the Kids Nature book. This is 365 Indoor-Outdoor Activities and Experiences. And this is just for fun because I like being strange. The sun is not being cooperative, you guys. I'm sorry if the lighting in this video is changing all over the place. Here is another book that we'll be using this year, Kids Nature book. 365 Indoor and Outdoor Activities by Susan Millord, M-I-L-O-R-D. One of my favorite features of this book is that it is dated. So you can just go through and find something appropriate to that time of year. You don't have to think about it too hard. So for example, if I go through and find, let's just say, throw me a date, September 2nd. Look for autumn wildflowers is what they say on September 2nd. And it says, some plants don't flower until late summer or early autumn. In colder regions, these may be the last to bloom until the following spring. You may know that the lovely gentians, plants that grow in moist meadows and along streams. Most species are violet or blue, although there are also yellow species. Yellow is also the color of one of the most familiar fall flowers, the goldenrod. And it goes on to describe goldenrods and asters. And it's just a really nice little almost like a morning time reading where you can read something that's relevant to that time of year. And now on the 3rd, they have an activity, watch an September sunset, and then it describes why sunsets are so colorful. On the 4th, it's look for flying ants, and it talks about how some ants have wings. On the 5th, dig up edible roots like carrots or beets, cattails. And on the 6th, make a seed chart, and it talks about different types of seeds and how they travel. On the 7th, collect wildflower seeds, make a burdock figure. So you don't have to do all of these things, obviously, but you know, turn to the week you're on, find an activity that works for you. I really, really like this book, and I definitely did pick it up at a thrift store. So that's basically the bulk of our science studies for my first grader this year. We also incorporate a lot of different random science books into morning time. We have an extensive library in our homeschool room with science books ranging from everything from ocean studies to human anatomy to space and everything in between. So we explore those things as we go as well. If I think of any other science resource that we use that we especially love, I'll be sure to share it in a separate video. I'd love to hear about what you guys are doing for science for your first graders and if you found any awesome things. So let me know in the comment box down below. It would be remiss of me if I didn't mention that we also have a Kiwi Crate subscription for my first grader, which involves a lot of STEM activities and science as well. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I know it was a little bit long-winded, but I hope you guys got something from it. Thank you so much for giving me your time, and I wish you the very best day. If we want to do those rotating charts with, what are those things called? Those things with the prongs. Brads.